Welcome to the latest episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Crayden, and when we come back, got a lot of news to share with you today.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yes, please like this station. Help us to beat the YouTube suppression and the Trudeau censorship. And you help us give you the news you need to hear. When you like it, subscribe if you can. That last broadcast sure didn't bring me many subscribers. I lost a subscriber. I have no idea. Sometimes I offend somebody. If I offended anybody out there with anything I said, my apologies. But I try to speak my mind, and sometimes there's disagreement, but I always try to tell you the truth and bring you clarity and veracity. That's my goal. That's always been my objective. So thanks for watching. Speaking of censorship, and I'll get on you're probably looking at that thumbnail and saying, what's this all about with Freeland and Carney? We'll get to that shortly. You'll have to wait for the broadcast for that one. But I really want to talk about how the Conservatives have found a new way to attack Bill C-63, the Online Harms Bill. And of course, this was, Trudeau's Online Harms Act includes life imprisonment for hate crime offense. Great censorship czar. This was my first story on it for the Post Millennial. The day after this thing was announced in the House of Commons. This is an odious bill. There's no other way to look around it. But Liberals to spend $200 million on new censorship bureaucracy, new parliamentary budget officer report finds. This is a Substack article by my old friend Michelle Rempel Garner. There's Michelle there in the House of Commons. She's slowly coming back to the prominence she used to have. She made a couple of missteps in the past, but every member of parliament makes a few mistakes. But she's really doing a great job right now attacking Bill C-63 the way she used to be a superb immigration critic. I used to cover her on a weekly basis for the work she did there. So it's interesting. This thing is not just bad in terms of censorship, in terms of putting people into life for so-called hate speech, fining people hundreds of thousands of dollars, fining social media companies millions of dollars for not taking down offensive speech, according to the Liberal government. But, as we discover, now Pierre Poilievre is calling this a three-headed monster. I have to put my glasses on and read this, okay? I'm saying, Trudeau is hell-bent on censoring Canadians and having total control over what you can say and say and hear online. His radical censorship laws, C-11 and C-18, have manufactured chaos and eliminated local news from your local media feeds. But he's not done with his new bill, C-63. He wants to create a new bilateral digital censorship bureau, spend more on bureaucracy, and give massive new censorship powers to the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Enough! Slay this ugly three-headed censorship monster. So, as a lot of you know, I've been calling this Trudeau's censorship trilogy because that's what it is with C-11 and C-18. C-63 has passed first reading. I've said this a number of times. It's not past second reading yet, and we've recessed, of course, for the summer. I don't think it's going to be the first order of business come September. No, yeah, I don't think it's going to be the immediate priority. So we have a chance of stifling this bill from ever becoming the law of the land. That's the best option, because I'm very happy to hear Pierre Poilievre say he's going to repeal C-63 if it's passed, but there's never any guarantee that's going to happen. And who knows how things are going to look by that time. Better the bill never see the light of day as a law. I've said that from the very beginning about this bill. It's very bad. And we need to destroy this bill now because it's a thought crimes bill. I've said that. Now, I'll give Poilievre some credit on this because he has remarked about the bill from Shirley, or truly and surely from censorship terms, from a philosophical viewpoint. He's actually said that the bill indicates that if Justin Trudeau read 1984, he saw it as a manual for dictatorial control, not a warning. So he has gone on the record saying that this is a bad bill for censorship. It's also a bad bill for spending. It's going to cost taxpayers $201 million over 5 years to set up these censorship boards. That's what they're going to be. The Digital Safety Commission, the Digital Safety Ombudsman, and these things that are going to work with your tax dollars to persecute stations like this, new media, maybe old media if they cross the line, and especially independent media. The thrust of this bill is to put stations like this out of business, off the air, not only with the threat of fines and legal action, but actually doing it. Putting people in prison because of something they said that offended somebody. So we don't need to know that this bill is going to cost $200 million to say it's a bad bill. That just makes it a worse bill. That just means it's another reason to kill Bill C-63, because it's not only going to stifle and destroy free speech in Canada, it's going to cost more money to create another whole layer of bureaucracy, 300 more government employees on the public tab. We don't need any more government employees. Trudeau's already hired more government employees in 9 years than all previous prime ministers. He's hired more than any other prime minister. And this is indicative of how he thinks the government is the answer to everything. Just keep on so-called investing with your taxpayer dollars in the economy, and everything will be okay. Not going to be okay. So I'm glad the Conservatives came up with this, and I'm glad Michelle Rempel-Garner received this information from the Parliamentary Budget Officer via an access information request. She got the information she asked for, and the PBO, once again, is showing that it does have a nonpartisan center to it. It's intrinsically nonpartisan if it can reveal this kind of information, just like it revealed that the carbon tax is not helping 8 out of 10 Canadians. It's not giving back more than it takes. It's taking way more than it gives. And the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that as well. Trudeau's own documents confirm that, for goodness sake. But we don't need any more lies and cover-up about this bill, this Online Harms Act. It is bad, and thank God the Conservatives have found another reason to oppose it and attack it. I'm reassured about that. I really am, and I'm glad that we've still got some guts in the official opposition. We need to see more of that, though. They should have been at this bill from the beginning, because if this thing goes through and it's passed, I tell you, it's not easy to repeal bills that become law because they immediately are seen as vested interests. They're immediately seen as suddenly tethered to human rights. You can't stop that. You can't repeal that bill. That would be a violation of somebody's human rights. That would be a violation of an agreement that this is suddenly censorship is now acceptable. So that's not a good plan. So I want to move on to our second story of the day. We got a lot of news to cover today, and thanks for tuning in again to KRAYDEN'S Right. This station needs you to support us in any way you can, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to do what I need to do, and I disregard what anyone else is telling me to do, what political parties suggest I should do, or what other stations are doing. I'm doing what I need to do as an independent journalist. And thank you for your support. I say that again today. But let's find out what the Trudeau government's doing to Saskatchewan when Saskatchewan does what the Liberal government did for Atlantic Canada, namely offering some financial assistance for the carbon tax to alleviate the financial burden of the carbon tax. Trudeau did that for Atlantic Canada because he was worried about Liberal MPs losing their seats in the next election because the carbon tax is killing Atlantic Canadians, just as it is Western Canadians, Central Canadians, Quebecers. Everybody in Canada is suffering under the carbon tax. But Trudeau was very particular. He said, well, I need those Atlantic Canada seats. I'm at risk of losing them. So I'm going to give those folks a little bit of a benefit. Saskatchewan tries to do the same thing, and Trudeau wants to claw back the money. Let's watch this report here. Yeah. And believe it or not, the CRA actually put this bouncing mojo on here, celebrating how wonderful the CRA is and how it's offering tax relief to everybody. Do you believe it? And Pierre Poilievre posted about X on this, saying this is the wacko kind of government we have with Justin Trudeau. And it is indeed a wacko kind of government.
She knows so long as she was denied.
So put that on pause for a second. So it's gobbledygook coming from this cartoon character, and it's gobbledygook coming from Joe Biden. It's what the hell are they talking about? But that's where things have gone in this country, where the Liberal government and the Democratic one in the United States thinks they can just talk gibberish to you, baby talk to you. And you're supposed to accept that as a political discourse. You're supposed to justify somehow that this is the government being funny, being playful with you, being unable to explain what their policies are. They just give you gibberish. So here's the story here. Scott Moe describing how the Trudeau government is clawing back, is using the CRA to claw back Saskatchewan revenue. Incredible, because they want to help out taxpayers. So there's a great story here from Brennan Eyre.
One Trudeau minister called it immoral.
It's irresponsible, and it's frankly immoral.
Another Trudeau minister said that if we wanted a carbon tax exemption, we should have elected more Liberals.
Perhaps they need to elect more Liberals on the prairies.
And then they started with the threats. They threatened to take away any rebates. They threatened fines and jail time. All because the Saskatchewan government was providing the same carbon tax relief here that the federal government was giving to other Canadians. Now, they're threatening us again with their favorite move when someone disagrees with them. They're sending the Canada Revenue Agency after the province's bank account. That's what they're doing. And the reason they're doing this is because we are providing Saskatchewan residents with the exact same carbon tax exemption as Trudeau is giving other Canadians. Other parts of Canada get tax relief, but we get our bank account garnished for providing that same tax relief. It's unfair and it's unconstitutional. Section 126 of Canada's Constitution does not allow the federal government to grab money from a province's bank account. So today, the province of Saskatchewan has filed an injunction to try to stop this unfair and unconstitutional cash grab by the Trudeau government. This is about fairness and the fair application of the law. The Trudeau NDP carbon tax should be taken off everything for everyone. But until that happens, your Saskatchewan government will protect our province and ensure tax fairness for Saskatchewan families.
Before we go to Disco Steve here, and this is fraught with comedy, the Saskatchewan Attorney General, the Justice Minister of Saskatchewan here, Ms. Eyre, is quite right in pointing out that this double standard, the hypocrisy of this is unbelievable. But this is what we've come to expect from Justin Trudeau, a grand hypocrite, an unalloyed narcissistic man, a complete hypocrite who calls, of course, everybody is racist and misogynist when he's projecting those so-called ideas on other people because that's what describes him best. He's the one that's racist and misogynistic. But she points out here that they're garnishing the revenue from Saskatchewan, taking literally from the Saskatchewan bank account, just like the Liberal government did when they froze the bank accounts of not only the truckers who were protesting COVID mandates in the Freedom Convoy, but anybody who supported them, financially or otherwise. They froze their bank accounts. That's how this dictatorial Liberal government behaves. And it's ridiculous. Here's Disco Steve Guilbeault telling you, how about it's so important to follow the law? Convicted felon.
We live in a state of law. It's not Premier Moe would somehow decide that he's above the law. No one is above the law. In Canada, we live in a state of law. It's not a dictatorship.
There will be consequences.
And no one is above the law. If Premier Scott Moe decides that he wants to start breaking laws and not respecting federal laws, then measures will have to be taken.
There will be consequences.
We can't let that happen. What if somebody tomorrow decides that they don't want to respect other federal laws, criminal laws? What would happen then if a prime minister, a premier of a province would want to do that? It's irresponsible and it's frankly immoral on his part. We can have disagreement about things like climate change, but to be so reckless is unspeakable, really.
Yes, you can find that sticker. You can find that Disco Steve Guilbeault, King Guilbeault, the radical environmentalist, the Greenpeace activist who was arrested for scaling the CN Tower. Laws don't apply to Steve. Oh, no. That's the law is one thing for other people, but not for Steve Guilbeault. He can do what the hell he wants because he is special. He's an environmental activist. Now he's a cabinet minister who's really just an environmental activist performing the role of a cabinet minister. But the law is so important if other people aren't directly adhering to it the way Stephen Guilbeault interprets it. But it was no problem for Stephen Guilbeault to break the law as a Greenpeace activist. And believe me, Greenpeace in those days and now, it's nothing like it was as an organization when it first started to save the whales. That's what it was all about. No, they went after loggers in a very brutal way. They were responsible for a lot of very bad things in the logging industry in BC, including spiking trees. I'm not blaming Guilbeault for that, but the Greenpeace organization has been linked to environmental terrorism. So don't give me a break, Guilbeault, going on about who is breaking the law and who isn't breaking the law. Yeah, right. Thanks for your comments, by the way. And thank you, Kelly, for saying that. We love you too. We love you for watching the show. And we got one more feature on here before we get to it, though. I saw some comments about Michelle Rempel and the things she said in the past about the whole LGBTQ and gender ideology, and I criticized her for that at the time. She was a fairly good friend, if you will, in her immigration critic days, and I was very critical of her during those times when she was saying things about gender ideology that I vehemently oppose, and I said I disagreed with her. I disagreed with her choice of leadership candidate in the last Conservative leadership race. But I have to give her credit for what she's doing on Bill C-63, and I understand there's some folks out there who are still mad at Michelle over that. I think she made a strategic error. I think it was a huge misstep to make, but she's had to live with that. She's had to live with those errors, and I think she's trying her best to come back. I hope she's, and I hope she's realized the error of her ways in those. But I give her credit for this, and I give Poilievre credit for standing up to C-63. As little as he has, he needs to do more. And I won't say he's done a consummate job on it, but he's done something. But he needs to do more, and they have to keep fighting on this. So let's go to our last segment here, which is the ongoing, continuing saga of the race to get rid of Justin Trudeau and replace him. We all know that Mark Carney The globalist supreme, the former governor of the Bank of England, this guy who is the stalwart liberal sitting in the background, hiding in the shadows of globalism, hiding in the shadows of the World Economic Forum, waiting to spring forth and take over from Justin Trudeau. He's not going to be any better than Justin Trudeau. In fact, he may even be worse if that's possible, because this guy is the consummate globalist. He's the consummate environmental activist as well. He wants net zero. He wants to cut those greenhouse gas emissions so we all end up living in caves. He's no better than Justin Trudeau. So let's have an update on how things are going with the knives out against Justin Trudeau.
Friday, Liberal backbencher Wayne Long emailed the entire Liberal caucus calling for Trudeau to go. It read, "For the future of our party and for the good of our country, we need new leadership and a new direction. The voters have spoken loud and clear. They want change. I agree." That same day, a small group of Liberal MPs wrote a letter to Liberal caucus chair Brenda Shanahan calling for an immediate in-person caucus meeting, saying, "We have spoken with dozens of our caucus colleagues, and among them, there is a clear consensus. We must have a national discussion about how we serve the needs of the Liberal Party of Canada, our government, and most importantly, the people of Canada."
If you don't have that caucus meeting, you're driving a wedge. And I think it would serve everybody better to have that in-person caucus meeting.
Okay, so
exactly what's on their minds.
The next scheduled caucus meeting is not until September, as I understand it, I believe, which is quite a bit of time away. Do you think they will wait until then? Do you think they can wait until then? What are the consequences if they do wait?
I don't think they can wait till then, because I think the feelings of caucus members now, for a lot of them, are that they're not getting through to the Prime Minister, which is rare. Usually the Prime Minister is there to listen to caucus and to listen to individuals. But on this one, I think it's not getting through, or somebody who's ever advising the Prime Minister is saying that's something you might want to stay away from right now. Let the dust settle. But I think it should be done sooner rather than later. If it was held this week, next week, or the week after, if I get a notice, I'll be there.
So you're not calling for the Prime Minister to leave. You're content if he stays on as leader, if that is the will of caucus? I mean, who do you ultimately think, Ken McDonald, should make that choice? Should it be Justin Trudeau and his advisors, or should it be the Liberal caucus? Where do you stand on that?
I think it would probably be a bit of both, because the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister. He's the leader of the party, and he's got to make a decision as well. But I think it starts with having an in-person caucus meeting and let everybody vent. And at the end of the day, if a majority wants the Prime Minister to leave, maybe he'll leave. I don't know. But I think that got to happen first.
Okay, one last quick question. You said before that this government was nearing its best before date. St. Paul's may have been an expiration notice of some kind. Do you think this party can turn things around the way things are right now in time for the next election?
If they do, I think it'll be somewhat of a miracle to turn it around, and that's not the reason why I've decided not to run. I decided long before this that I wouldn't be running in the next election.
Do you think this party can turn things around the way things are right now in time for the next election?
If they do, I think it'll be somewhat of a miracle.
Your party is 20 points down in the polls, and you've lost one of the safest Liberal seats in the city, represented largely due to voters' concerns around the cost of living and their finances. Can you explain why you should stay on as Finance Minister?
Never seen a sadder look on Freeland's face. It's like she knows it's over. It's all over except the crying. And she looks like she's on the verge of tears here. I'm not often sympathetic towards Chrystia Freeland, and I'm not saying I am right now, but you can certainly see the pain. But she's induced that pain on everybody else. And of course, the talk here in Ottawa is that Trudeau wanted to put Freeland under the bus, just like he did Jody Wilson-Raybould, the former Attorney General who complained about Trudeau's handling of the SNC-Lavalin scandal. The talk here in Ottawa is that Freeland was going to be shoved under the bus. Mark Carney brought in as finance minister, and goodbye, Chrystia Freeland. Now, that's entirely possible, but Mark Carney? I don't want to be finance minister. I'm not going to listen to you, Justin Trudeau. I'm not going to take your orders. I'm not going to replace Chrystia Freeland. I got bigger plans in mind.
I know you wouldn't necessarily mind being prime minister in the future. If there were a Carney administration, how would it differ from what Canada's seen in recent years?
Whoever, over the course of the next decade, I think this is a decisive decade very much for Canada. We have...
Yes. Is Carney gunning for Trudeau's job? Like I said, yeah, he's waiting in line. He's in the shadows of globalism, in the shadows of the World Economic Forum. He's ready to bolt forth and take over. But do you think Canadians are going to go for this? I don't. Liberals try this all the time. Just get rid of the unpopular leader whose time has been over. But you see Mark Carney licking his lips like Sylvester the cat, waiting for his opportunity, which I don't think is going to come anytime soon. Anytime soon. So, let's show a few more of your comments. Tomorrow, I am trying to get Jim Ferguson, who is that wonderful commentator from Scotland, on to talk about the UK election results. I was hoping to get my good friend Neil Oliver on, but he's taken a week off, gave his apologies, and said, I really can't talk this week, David, and we and the family are off on vacation. So I sent a direct message to Jim Ferguson, and he said, yeah, he'd be happy to appear on the show, and we're just tentatively working that out for tomorrow, talking about this landslide Labour victory, which, of course, in the UK, it's Tweedledee, Tweedledum. It's the Uniparty, whether it's the Conservatives or Labour, they're all the same. But the real news is that the Reform Party has gained, 4 seats, including Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party. And I heard Nigel say the other day that he named the Reform Party after the Reform Party of Canada that was founded by Preston Manning. And that touched me. That was one of the few parties I actually ever trusted in Canada. I thought it had some great ideas. And I was sad to see how things got watered down over the years through the Canadian Alliance, through the merger with the Progressive Conservatives, and to the establishment of the Conservative Party. A lot of good principles were lost. Of course, it was always a better alternative than the Liberals ever could be. But I thought that was a nice homage, if you will, to the Reform Party of Canada and the optimism, the spirit of shall we say, the spirit of optimism we had for a short time in Canada. But let's face it, things are in such a quagmire right now with Justin Trudeau. They can only get better with Pierre Poilievre. And I'm also hoping to have our friend Maxime Bernier on the show. I haven't had Maxime on, my goodness, in probably a year. And I want to talk to him about observations he made about this recent appointment, in fact, just this week, of a new chief of defense staff, a female chief of defense staff, who Maxine tweeted yesterday, or I should say posted on X. She is the most woke choice possible for Justin Trudeau. He didn't just choose her because she's a woman, but she's a woke woman. And she's been responsible for a lot of the crap that's been going on in the military, watering down the standards for dress and deportment and everything else. And so I think she's been a wholly bad choice. And Maxime could be on the show in the next couple of days to talk about this, talk about Bill C-63 and where he sees the future of the People's Party of Canada and his own career if there's a change in government. And Maxime remains a good friend of mine. I know the viewers are divided over Maxime, but I think he's got some great things to say, and he stands for all the right things as far as I'm concerned. So I'm looking forward to talking to Maxime again. And we will be talking about the UK election tomorrow and the birth of the Reform Party and what that means. And of course, this weekend, the run-up elections in France, where we're seeing huge support for, I'm not going to call them the far-right parties or the far-right party of Marine Le Pen. I'm going to say the populist conservative movement. in France is getting a huge vote of confidence from French voters. And Macron, Emmanuel Macron, that excuse for a president who wanted to invade Russia, he's going the way of Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden. All of these people are going to be put out to pasture. And Joe Biden says, and by the way, I'll add this at the end, Joe Biden is convinced he's still running for president. Not going to happen. I guarantee it. The Democrats are going to turf this guy because he is incapable of leading the party even to defeat in the next presidential election. And he should be removed as president of the United States because he is grossly incompetent and incapacitated. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you all for commenting. I'll put a few more up before we leave here. Thank you so much for being a part of Craydon's Right and a part of this show today. We believe in freedom. We believe in democracy. We especially fight for free speech on this station. Thank you for supporting us, and we will be back tomorrow. Please support us if you can.